So let's talk about a few things to consider when considering putting together your nutrition plan, and all factors relating, as in food selections, pretty much everything. Um, so the first fundamental thing you need to look at is what the goal is, and the goal, if it's weight loss or lean tissue gain, and obviously we're talking surplus for gain and deficit for weight loss, which leads us to the formula, energy in versus energy out. So this is actually the basis of the whole thing. The part of it that concerns me, obviously, is how people will stretch this as far as the parameters and not look at variables that come into play when considering this. So in a normal situation, obviously, if you're eating more than you're expending, you're going to get bigger. Now, if you are training, obviously, you're going to get bigger. You might put some adipose tissue on, but you're going to be aiming to put lean tissue on. It's inevitable. Obviously, if you're eating less than what you're expending, which is deficit, you should be losing weight. So first and foremost, we need to look at what a maintenance level of caloric intake for a said human being is. Now, this is the part that's not that easy to define. There are a lot of factors that influence this situation, but let's just say, for the ease of this topic, let's just say you have a human that basically at maintenance level, with training 3 times a week, their expenditure stepwise moving around to perform daily function is, say, 2,500 calories. Now, if this person wants to lose weight, obviously we're going to need to eat less than the 2,500. And that's it. So it is a very, very simple equation when you look at it like that. But the things that I want to look at and consider and is the variables that can affect these things. So number one is the food selection. In today's day and age, we're getting away more and more from eating whole foods. Now, a lot of that is to do with the lack of discipline, supposed ease, which I don't agree with. I think it's quite easy to prepare and cook your own food. But let's look at it this way. If you're eating whole foods, the ingredients in those whole foods are very, very minimal. They're pretty much the whole food, apart from having a couple little bits and pieces. The alternatives are people are eating a lot of processed shit. And this is where the problem comes into play, is that they are looking at the numbers of the energy in versus the energy out, the said caloric intake, and the said macro breakdown. Now, to sit there and say that a human can eat whatever they want, provided it fits these numbers, is insanity. Now, this will work, obviously, in the beginning, and it's true, because it is energy in versus energy out. And this is why these people are pushing this equation and pushing it across the line the whole time. But factors that can influence maintenance and that can influence this whole situation are eating of processed foods and other higher risk foods for inflammatory response. If these foods are continually consumed and we're fouling up the system, interfering with gut microbiome through various sorts of contaminants, inflammatory responses, what you're doing is you're regressing how optimal the system is functioning. Now, in the regress state, the person's maintenance calories can actually lower then. Well, not can actually, they will. They'll actually lower from the 2,500. You can't sit there and put exact numbers on it because you can't. But when you look at it that way, you want the system to be functioning as optimally as possible, right? Now, to do these things, we need to obviously reduce inflammation, manage cortisol, and then in turn, when these factors are managed and also body fat is in check as well, we're controlling resistance to insulin. And resistance to insulin is the inability for the body to optimally partition nutrient in the most optimal fashion. So there's a lot of coaches out there prescribing and basically saying, I can show you how to lose weight and still eat cake. Well, that's fine. That will work for a little while until you actually fail the system. And then once you do, then you're going to run into more problems. And then you'll find that human eat less and less. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Basically, I'm eating this many calories and it's just not working. So I've had to lower my food. You keep lowering your food until you're basically eating nothing. Then we've got other factors. The body starts to recognize as it is an adaptive organism, and its primary function is to take its next breath. So it will do whatever it can to ensure that it takes its next breath. So all these other mechanisms come into play. People like to talk about fight or flight and all these things. Moral of the story is, if the body's metabolizing at a certain pace and getting a certain amount of food, it's fine. Once it recognizes that it's not getting the same amount of food and it keeps metabolizing at the same speed, it realizes it's going to run itself into problems. So some people are calling this metabolic damage. Fair enough, whatever you want to say. Once again, adaptive organism, it's metabolic adaptation, which can be reversed. So the purpose of what I'm saying is that I want you to consider the quality of the food that you're putting in, first and foremost, okay? All foods have different integrities. All foods have hidden ingredients when they're processed, preservatives, flavors, all sorts of things. Next time you got something like a packet of cereal or some sort of preserved rubbish that you're trying to eat, go to the ingredient list and have a look at it, and have a look at how many ingredients are in there. You'll be shocked when you see how many there is. And then on top of that, ask yourself the honest question: how many of those ingredients do you actually know what they are? So I don't know about you, but my faith in humans telling the truth is not really that great. So for me, on a personal level, I like to eliminate any chance of eating shit like that. Now, I'm not going to sit there and preach and say that I don't eat any processed stuff from time to time. But the one thing I can tell you is that I cook, prepare, and purchase from scratch every meal that I eat at least 90% of the time. Now, there's coaches out there holding up Kit Kats and holding out, bowls of nuts and trying to compare that the calories are the same and rubbish like this. These are sales gimmicks. They select the macro that has the highest caloric density, as in fats. So therefore, it has double the amount of calories, just over double actually, the amount of calories in it than carbohydrates or protein has. So what a great way to illustrate this vast difference by showing you a Kit Kat and showing you a handful of nuts and going, which one would you rather eat? Now, I challenge these people, why don't you actually get the Kit Kat and put a bowl of potatoes to the same caloric value in there and show the people how many potatoes you can actually eat in relation to that Kit Kat. It's not as dramatic, is it? So, they would rather show you the small amount versus the Kit Kat versus the large amount. So a bit less sensational. What concerns me the most is these people are telling you what you want to hear, not what you actually need to hear. And what you need to hear is also the hardest thing to hear, along with the truth. So I try to pride myself in basically telling people what they need to hear. And it's not always that popular. But if you've got a coach telling you that you can eat whatever you want, provided if it's a set of numbers, you need to get rid of that person. And to that coach doing that, that person needs to stop posting shit, basically, because it's not the right way to do it. Okay. You are not giving this person the correct and most healthy information that they can. Okay. There are so many issues that are popping up more and more nowadays. And people are trying to say that they're just getting better at diagnosing them. That's a load of shit. It's not the diagnosis may be getting better. Yes, no denying that. But the increase in these conditions that are appearing are definitely in relation to the more and more shit that's being consumed. So there's a lot of factors involved when selecting foods for your nutrition plan. So obviously, number one is the goal, whether you want to get bigger, whether you want to get smaller. So that's surplus or deficit. Obviously, there are foods that we all don't like, and there are foods we love. So obviously, write a list of those things in a plus and a minus column. Make up the foods in your plan with predominantly whole foods. Just take a walk past the deli section in any supermarket, okay, and have a look at the sliced meats that are sitting there and the apparent chicken breast that looks like a soccer ball that's got string around it. I've never seen a round chicken breast before. I mean, that is just offcuts, fillers, gum, and shit just sticking that stuff together. It's just processed garbage, okay? So have a think about these things, okay? Food integrities. Just because something says it's gluten-free like cereal, that doesn't automatically mean it's good. It's got a lot of processed shit in there, okay? Compare that to something of rice or potatoes. If you really want to get serious and you really want to do something good for yourself, you need to be healthy. And this just doesn't go to day-to-day life. This goes in bodybuilding as well. You know, the healthier you are, the more the body will grow. The more you look after it, the more it'll give back. So food integrity. Quality of food. Foods are not all the same. Just because they have a energy value, it does not make them the same. Just because they have a macro breakdown and energy value, it doesn't make them the same. The integrities of these foods are different, okay? Eggs, beef, chicken, these whole foods, they contain all 9 essential amino acids, okay? Now, I'm just saying this to you to illustrate once again about the integrity of foods. Now, if you're not using meat, and God bless you if you're not, that's your choice. The foods that you're using to make up, these macros, like protein, for example, because there's no direct protein source, these foods don't carry, the vast majority of them don't carry all 9 essential aminos. Now, I'm not saying you have to always have all 9 essential amino acids. What I'm trying to show you is the difference. You know, you've got these foods that are just high in integrity and in quality, and then you're making up these other, these numbers with other foods that just don't have the same quality of nutrient and integrity. So there's a lot of factors to consider. The macro is a macro. It's a great argument in the sense that people will always revert back to energy in versus energy out. And, no one's going to deny that because it is the fundamental equation. But I really want to point out that there are varying factors that will influence this equation, the efficacy of the body assimilating the nutrient, how well it will manage glycogen, how well it absorbs the nutrient, hormonal balances. All these things are affected by the things that you eat, and, the things you choose to put in your mouth. So discipline. Remember this as well. If you want a different outcome for tomorrow, what are you doing differently today from yesterday to make tomorrow different? Okay. If you have an answer and you are, then good on you. But if the answer's no, you're not doing anything different today from yesterday, then you are not going to be different tomorrow. Remember that. To get to somewhere, you have to sacrifice. Okay. Remember this. People come to me and they go, I really need to lose weight. That's fine. Great. That's the first step. Amazing. And then after 2 weeks, I need some variety. Okay, so you're 35 years old, you're fat. Okay, you've had 35 years of variety, and after 2 weeks, you can't just sacrifice enough to get to a point. To get to somewhere you haven't been before, you must do something different to what you've done before. Fact. Once you get to that point and you're happy and you want to have some sort of maintenance or control at that point, fine. That's a different situation. But don't think that you are going to get to somewhere different by using your old habits. Anyhow, something to think about. Thank you.